situation where some of them had zero knowledge of who Jesus Christ is. And we have to be able to take them through this process. If you push this one here, when they have zero knowledge of God, grace, Jesus Christ, and they don't understand it, you may get them to raise their hand. Okay? You may get them to raise their hand, and then you wonder, what happened to them? Where are they anyway? Well, actually, they raised their hand because all they did was move from here to here. That was really the intention of raising their hand. They're saying, I like what you're saying, but I really don't know all the implications of it. You asked me to raise my hand, so I did what? I raised my hand. You thought I was way up here, but actually I'm way down here. Okay? And so when I understood that freed me up. I was feeling less guilty about sharing the gospel, because I recognized that in any of my conversations with people, as long as I'm moving them in that process there, I am doing evangelism. I'm doing evangelism. And so I put in your notes there, I'm just going to read through it real quickly because I think it's important for us to see this. The first level there is, I put down there that first there is an initial awareness or interest. So some of the many decisions, you can see it in your notes there, some of the many decisions that a person might make are these. They might say, wow, she's a religious person, but she's surprisingly open-minded. There's a positive response that's taken place. Or they might say, wow, you can be a Christian and you can be intelligent. Okay? In other words, there's that positive response to the message that you're saying. I see the difference between Christianity and just being a good moral person. He is a Christian and seems to have his act together when it comes to life. I wonder what that is all about. And so those are just those initial, that's way down here, where they're showing initial interest in the message. And then the next series of decisions are in regard to the relevance of Christianity. And so you might hear them saying, it would really be neat if I could believe and have faith like she does. I am missing something in my life. Now you're seeing that the need starting to develop. If they don't understand the need, why are they going to go to the solution? They have to understand that sin problem. They have to understand that so that they understand what the solution is all about. A lot of the things in the Bible make sense, and I have to start reading it more. And then the next decisions have to do more with Christianity's truthfulness and credibility. I can see that the Bible is true and accurate. Jesus really is God. I see now why Jesus had to die. Now you're seeing their understanding do what? Grow. Okay? Now they've understood a need. Now they're understanding who Jesus is. And then there's a series of many decisions that have to do with the point of conversion there. I understand now what it means to be a sinner and that I need help. I want to believe in Jesus. I really want to follow Jesus. And so that to me, once I understood the decision-making process that people go through, especially today, it was very useful to me. At the very end of your notes, on the last page, I printed off somebody else's presentation of the same kind of stuff. It's a little different language, but then it also shows after evangelism takes place some of the follow-up things that also need to be implemented for the person once they come to know Christ as their Savior. So you can kind of see the whole decision-making process on that last page there. Anybody have any questions on that? Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you? To me, it was an important point for me. Of course, our goal is to bring them to the point of conversion. That's what we want to see them become a follower of Christ. We want to see them enter the kingdom of God. We want to see that take place. But we need to understand that to get to that point, most people take a lot of little smaller decisions to bring them up to that place there. Again, so for some people, that process can take a matter of days, weeks, months. For some people, it can take, it's a matter of years. before they get to that place. But they need to go through that process so that they fully understand what the gospel message is all about. I'm just going to share a little about sharing your own faith story. Usually we'd call that our testimony. And I just want to go over that because one of the most powerful ways for us to share the gospel is through our own story. What Christ has done for me. How Christ has changed me. In today's world where there is no recognition of objective truth that's out there, what is important to people is their experiences. And so when you share your experience, they can't argue with you. That's your experience. That's what happened to you. Okay, so it's a very powerful way of sharing the gospel with another person is through your faith story that you have. Years ago, a lot of times people came to Christ through arguing, bringing out the right arguments. And when you learned about evangelism, a lot of times you learn, okay, if they say this, then you say this. And if they say this, then you say this. It was kind of a canned approach to sharing the gospel. Today, a lot of times, like I said, it's just sharing the difference that Christ has made in your life. Now, just to introduce this, and I'm going to take a risk here at using a bad illustration, but hopefully it'll come clear. Let's say that you ran into a friend whom you have not seen for 6 to 8 years. Okay? You haven't seen them for a long time. No, 6 to 8 months. 6 to 8 months. When you see her, she right away starts talking to you about the new diet that she's on. And she can't stop talking about it. She just goes on and on about it. She says it's the best thing ever and raves about it. Now, when somebody raves about a new diet, what are you actually interested in? When somebody really talks about a new diet, what are we actually interested in? What's that?
How much weight do you lose?
Okay. What difference did it make in your life? Okay? That's why you can rave all you want about the diet, but if it's not changing you, if you're not losing weight, what's the big deal about it? Okay? And I would say the same thing for us is that we need to recognize that when we share about our faith journey, what we're trying to do is we're trying to express to them the difference that Christ has made in us. And if the diet, you can talk about diet, but if the diet hasn't made any difference in their life, are you going to try that diet? No, you're not going to try that diet. And the same thing for us. If they can see no difference in our life, even though we might talk about the difference that Christ has made, but they can see no different in our life, do you think that they're going to follow Christ no matter what you say? No, they're not. What you want in our faith story, what we want to do is to share the difference that Christ has made in our lives. Let me use this illustration. I think all of us here know the story of Zacchaeus from Luke chapter 9. Zacchaeus was a very wealthy person. He was a tax collector, and he lived for one thing and one thing alone. And what was that? Money. Okay? Money. He had the reputation around town of making money. He would do whatever it took to make money, even if he had to be deceitful and to trick people. He did whatever it took to make money. Then one day, he encountered Jesus. And Jesus said, I'm coming to your house for dinner. And everything changed for him. After dinner, after encountering Jesus at that dinner, Zacchaeus declared that he was going to pay back every single dollar and every single cent that he had stolen or he had extorted from people. And then he said that he was going to give half of his net worth to the poor. Now, what do you think Jesus talked about when he met up with others? What do you think he talked about? when he shared his testimony, what do you think he talked about? If somebody came up to him and they say, hey, Zach, I hear you got religion. What do you think he was going to tell them? If you met up with somebody and say, hey, Zacchaeus, I hear that you're into God now. What happened to you anyway? You know what? I think Zacchaeus would have said there, I'll tell you what happened. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. You know me, you know that my whole life was wrapped up with one thing, money. I can tell you I was in the grip of greed, and as a result of that, it messed up my relationships with my family. It messed up my relationships with my friends. I could not get out of the grip of greed. That was before I met Jesus. And then I met Jesus. He came over to my house to dinner, and you know what? Jesus set me free. And he taught me what it means to have a relationship with him. And it taught me what it means to care, really care about other people, especially the poor. That is what Jesus did for me. That's how he changed me. Boom. I think that's all he said. That's all he said. It was that simple. I'm sure that Zacchaeus probably told that story over many, many times. It doesn't get any more complicated than that. All you're doing is sharing the difference that Jesus Christ has made in your life. We don't have to come up with slick presentations. We don't have to learn all the arguments that are out there. Maybe in certain situations, if you're on the college campuses where you're sitting in the cafe and you're talking and you're arguing, maybe you want to learn the argument. But in 90% of the times that you share the gospel, all you're doing is sharing the difference that Christ has made in your life. For some of us, it could be this simple. Before I met Jesus,